you're overfeeding your fish. Hi everybody, welcome back to Tam Talks Tanks Tuesdays. It's been a hectic part of my life, baby and being sick and just everything, just total chaos. So I'm glad that things are back. Just bear with me because things are still a little bit chaotic, but life is nothing but chaos at the moment. This is one of the few constants. So without further ado, let's get to it. If you're new to fish keeping, you're probably making a big mistake, and that is overfeeding your fish. You don't need that much. It's really difficult to starve a freshwater fish, as long as you feed them from time to time. And let's get into it. If you've set up your tank right, as in it's not a sterile box of water that you've just dumped a fish into, kind of lush with plants and kind of building a bit of an ecosystem, you know, doing it right, then you'll find that there's all sorts of tiny little zooplankton and microorganisms within the water and on the substrate. You might even see, if you look very closely, you won't be able to see it here because of my camera quality and it's just a nightmare. But if you look at your own tank, if you've put things like plants in and you look really closely at the glass, you'll probably see tiny little copepods or other zooplankton, as in very small animals really, that your fish will snack on during the time that you're not feeding them. And this is good because it helps them to exhibit their natural behaviours, because in the wild fish won't typically have just an influx of food. You know, that's totally artificial, and it's not good for the fish to be constantly filled up with food. I could have said that better, but I can't really think right now. So it's not natural for a fish to be in that sort of environment. In the wild, they'll pick at just little things. They'll find the food that they can. And in an aquarium, if we want to make life easier for ourselves, we can choose to replicate nature to the best of our abilities. If you replicate nature in your tank, you're probably going to have an easier time with maintenance, and you're probably going to have happier fish, because it's not normal and it's not natural for the fish to find an influx of food all the time. An influx of food happens semi-infrequently. So the rest of the time, what they'll do is they'll find all those little bits of zooplankton, all those tiny little animals like your copepods or maybe ostracods, things like that, and they'll just pick them off. Fish are cold-blooded, so they'll take the heat from their environment. And if you think of, you know, as an extreme example, crocodiles or snakes, once they eat a massive meal, they don't have to eat again for months. I'm not saying don't feed your fish for months, but you really don't have to feed them as much as the labels say. Because this label, I'm pretty sure it says to feed them twice a day, but I don't. And look, my tank is healthy as, and the fish are a lot healthier. Feed them high quality foods. So get this out again, I really like fluval bug bites. Not a sponsor, obviously, I'm just a small channel, but I do like them. I like the flakes because they're easy. I think the pellets are probably higher quality, but this being slightly lower quality than the pellets, it's not really that big of an issue. It's still pretty high quality stuff and I'm happy with it. When I feed this to my fish, it gets them breeding, and that's how you know that they're really happy. So I feed them fluval bug bites. I need to get some more actually. I feed them freeze-dried tubifex worms. Just algae wafers, making sure that there's protein in them and, well, plant matter in them. And freeze-dried bloodworms. The nice thing about freeze-dried bloodworms, as opposed to fresh bloodworms or frozen bloodworms, is that you can crush them up and you can turn them into a sort of powder, which is really good for the nano fish in here, like the rasboras, chili, and otherwise. See my previous video. Now, having said that, I don't feed this to them every single day. I feed the fish probably twice a week. Once a week to twice a week. No more than that. And for so many fish in the tank, I feed them 4 algae wafers. I feed them a cube. Well, I need to get more because it's all powder now. But they do come in cubes. I feed them a cube of tubifex worms, or, not and, but or, the bloodworms as their protein source. Well, the big protein source. And I'll also give them 2 pinches of bug bites. Now, that is a lot of food. I'm not denying that is a lot of food. But the trick is, I don't feed them often. I feed them once or twice a week. And it's a lovely thing to be able to see them just going absolutely nuts. And it's kind of simulating, you know, maybe a dead mammal falling into the water, like a dead mouse or something, and something's ripping it apart and all the flesh is coming off, and the fish can kind of pick up the pieces that are being torn about into the water. It's kind of like that. It's an opportunistic feed. It doesn't happen often. The rest of the time, the fish are left to their own devices to eat what's in the ecosystem that I've set up for them. As you can see, it keeps the water clear. My fish are healthy. Don't overfeed your fish. You only need to feed them once or twice a week. Work out yourself how much you need to feed them. They should finish their meal within a 2-minute period in the water column. Personally, and this is controversial, I overfeed my fish during feedings because I don't feed them often, and most of my fish are bottom feeders because I've got 4 coolie loaches. I've got 4 coolie loaches and 8 panda corridoras, and I've got assassin snails and bladder snails in there, and I've got cherry shrimp. So most of my aquatic livestock are bottom feeders, so I do overfeed them, and that's totally fine for me. That works for me, that works for my fish, because most of them are bottom feeders and they're happy to just nibble away. I've got such a big cleanup crew that it works for me. It might not work for you. You might have to stick to the 2-minute rule, especially if your cleanup crew isn't as large. But I've got such a huge cleanup crew that I've got to feed them as well, and they can't just pick up the scraps, otherwise they'll starve. If you've got a big cleanup crew, feed your fish more but less often. And that's the wisdom that I have for you today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section down below. And if you like what you see, please consider liking the video and potentially even subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Alright, the fish know it's feeding time, so let me show you what I feed them. So we take a pinch of dried bloodworms, crushing it up. And you can see there's some bits that remain bigger and some bits that remain smaller. It's good for different sized mouths. And we take some algae wafers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we take not a small pinch, but not a big pinch either, of the flake. And just crunch it all up. Some big bits, some little bits. Nothing too crazy. You don't want to turn it into a complete powder. I mean, if you've got little mouths to feed, like the rasboras, yes. But so I do crunch it into a fine powder towards the end of the crunching process. I'm not using good English right now, but I hope you know what I mean. Like that. You can see there's some big bits, some little bits, and it will kind of slowly sink down through the duckweed. And here we are. It's feeding time at the zoo. And there you go, you can see the assassin snail, one of many because they've started breeding, and the panda corridoras going nuts for the algae wafers. They're also finding the flake food that's making its way to the bottom. They'll find the bloodworms that make their way to the bottom as well. And the cherry shrimp are they're doing their thing. There's one of the coolie loaches. So yeah, you can see why I have to feed so much in one sitting, but the trick is to just not do it too often. So there you go.